Back here on Titans Talk and ready for your phone call. 737-7767, the number, and we begin tonight with Eric. Eric, what's going on?
Hey, Steve, as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks.
Hey, listen, you're right on your thoughts on A.J. Brown, but I think it's a lot of other things, too, that certainly doesn't help. You've got the fact you've got draft pick hasn't worked out, like Dylan Radins and Isaiah Wilson. Also had free agent acquisitions that haven't worked out, such as Jadeveon Clowney and Julio Jones. And some of those moves, I guess predicated where they felt like they couldn't pay A.J. Brown.
Here's the thing, Eric, and I'll let you jump right back in. To me, that's all the more reason why you have to keep A.J. because you flamed out on some of these first-round picks and second-round picks and free agent signings, guys who you did invest in who haven't panned out. Here's a guy you got in the second round who was an absolute star that changed what your franchise could do, and you trade him away with the thought, I guess, that you're going to go back into the draft and get somebody to replace him. I don't see it, and to me it was a total miscalculation. They're paying the price.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're not right, but I'm also wondering something else. If the decision to re-sign Harold Landry had something to do with it, maybe, and I'm not saying it was the right move, maybe they had to make a decision. Do we re-sign Harold Landry, or do we re-sign A.J. Brown? And, of course, they're facing the offseason now, too, whether or not they're going to re-sign Jeffrey Simmons. You can't afford to lose him, but Simmons could decide, well, maybe I don't want to come back here or not. Maybe they could have made the decision. I don't know. Should they have used a franchise tag on A.J. Brown, or was he not eligible, or did he not want that? I mean, I don't know. So.
Well, but that's the other thing is he was under contract for this year. They didn't have to do anything. He was going to be here this year. And so then they could have decided, all right, we're going to use the franchise tag, we're going to use the transition. There were a lot of options in their bank. And for whatever reason, in the span of about a month last spring, the relationship soured so much that on draft night, John Robinson just decided, I'm trading him for a handful of draft picks. And that, to me, is one of the most mind-boggling decisions. And I want to give Robinson credit because Robinson is the guy who's built the Titans from the worst team in the league in back-to-back seasons to a place where they're on their way to a 7th straight winning season and a 3rd consecutive division title. He's the guy who is the architect behind that. He started it before Mike Vrabel got here, before Derrick Henry got here, before A.J. Brown got here, and before Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback. He started it. But while all of those guys have elevated it to the next level, he might have been the guy who made the decision, who halted their progress and took them out of that championship window, as you always talk about. And that's what we're talking about today, because we saw a guy who elevated them on the field yesterday for the other team.
Well, and of course, if they don't make the A.J. Brown move and trade him, you're probably not drafting Treylon Burks. You either draft another wide receiver or doing something else. So that's kind of how all the dominoes fell. But anyway, as far as yesterday's game goes, it's certainly bad when your offensive line is terrible, your quarterback gets sacked 6 times, and basically he has more rushing yardage than your running back, which is not good. And also defensively, I just think defensively, part of it is because they've been on the field so much, they ran out of gas. Because we've expected defense to bail us out week after week after week, and they finally just caught up with them yesterday, because they can't play like that every week when your offense can't move the ball and can't, score points. I mean, which is what it's taken. We've also had all the injuries to different players. Of course, Burks got hurt yesterday. Bullock was back after being out for a while. You had Ben Jones back. But then, of course, on defense, I know we still have Harold Landry out, who, of course, is out for the season. And who's it? I've drawn a blank on the other defensive guy. Was it Danico Autry?
Danico Autry is still out. He's a huge loss.
And that didn't help. I think they made a move, I guess, today to sign a pass rusher or whatever. How much that'll help, I don't know. But it's just interesting with all the moves they've made. And you definitely, J-Rob definitely deserves some heat for a lot of the moves that they've made. He's got to be held to the fire. And as Mike Vrabel said, they are at a crossroads, and it's just about interesting. What's the identity going forward with this team? I mean, we may beat Jacksonville Sunday, but still, that's not going to make Titans fans really feel good, because you've still got part opponents like the Chargers and the Cowboys coming up, and if you can't compete and beat those teams, I mean, other than that, you got 3 division games left, which you'll probably go 2-1 or 3-0. We'll probably wind up 9-8 or 10-7. But what is that going to get you?
Yeah.
Well, Steve, I'll get off and let you get to some other callers. Take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Eric. Good call. And that's exactly right. I mean, the Titans have beaten the teams on their schedule they should beat. And in all those games against the good teams, they've pretty much lost. They're 1-5 now. Their one win is over the Commanders back in early October on the road. Everybody else who has a winning record or would be a playoff team as of tonight, they've lost to. It's a pretty clear delineation of where the Titans stand right now. This, by the way, after last season, when they were the #1 seed, the Titans had 8 wins against teams with winning records last year. 8. They were 8-3. They had the most in the league. And so not just did they get the #1 seed, but they were a legitimate #1 seed because they were beating really good teams to do it. Excuse me. Back to the phones we go. We'll say hello to Gordon. Gordon, good evening.
Hi, Steve. Let me just say I am disgusted. I'll start from that point. I don't see a whole lot right now that's going well for this team, particularly with the offense. Everything you and everybody said about that trade of A.J. Brown was, especially since, like you said, they could have held on to him without doing anything for one more year and see what else developed. Right now, A.J. Brown was an elite wide receiver on day one. Traylon Burks is good. I think, he shows a lot of promise. But so far, I haven't seen that he's elite. Derrick Henry's an elite, or has been an elite running back, but he just came to a screeching halt a month ago. And yeah, part of it is because teams are stacking the box, but teams are stacking the box because they're not afraid of our wide receivers.
100%.
So, and then you've got an offensive line. Look, Ben Jones was back. That should have been an opportunity for Derrick Henry to at least get 70, 80 yards instead of 30. So I think this team has so many holes in it right now that I'm not 100% sure that they're going to win this division. I think it's very likely. But you know what? We're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who even in their bad years have always played us really tight. And so have the Texans. So worst case scenario, they could lose 3 games in the division in the next few weeks. I don't know what you do this year, but elite wide receivers or elite players don't come along every year. And this was a head-scratcher. Yeah, you're right that John Robinson helped build this team, but he also torpedoed it this year. So, I'm really disgusted with it. Last week I made the comment, I know you challenged it, when I said the Titans were not as good as their record, and what I meant by that is 7-4 didn't look bad until you realized that the 7 games they won were up against poor teams, and they couldn't win a game against a good team, and that's what I meant by that. They'll be lucky to be able to get to the playoffs, and then it's going to be wait till next year, and it didn't have to be that way. And I think giving up A.J. Brown was a huge mistake that it may take years to fix.
Yeah.
You put him out there, and they can't stack the box so easily against Derrick Henry because they got to double-team A.J. Brown. Now they don't have to do that. So I started and I'll end with the same statement. I'm disgusted.
Yeah. Gordon, thanks for the call. I think you echo the sentiments of a lot of Titans fans out there right now, just frustrated at the way this season has gone. I think they're frustrated at the trade from last spring. And frankly, what you said about the playoffs is what the bottom line is. If this was the Titans of 2015 or 2016, you'd be thrilled for the Titans to be 7-5 and on top of the division and feeling like they're going to go to the playoffs as a division champion. You would think that's a great step in the right direction from where they had been, and it would have been. But this is a team now that is headed to the playoffs for a fifth time in 7 years. They're going to have a 7th consecutive winning record in all likelihood. They are going to win the division for the 3rd consecutive year. the bar has been raised around here. It's not just good enough to do those types of things. At some point, you've got to compete and win in the playoffs. And while I don't put this on Mike Vrabel, because I think he's done a very good job here in every phase of things as the head coach, the Titans have lost in their first game of the playoffs at home the last 2 years. And there is no reason to think that they're going to buck that trend this year. And you would start to have to ask some questions if a team gets home field advantage in the playoffs in 3 consecutive seasons as a division champion and can't win a game. That's a real concern. And I think it's a real legitimate question to be asking this Titans team right now, because they don't look like a team that can win in the playoffs. So I agree on pretty much everything said there. I still think the record is what it is, and I understand your point. I think in some ways we're saying the same thing. The Titans can beat the bad teams, and I'm not as worried about them losing. Sure, they could lose to the Jaguars this weekend or at the end of the season in Jacksonville, or potentially lose to the Texans. But here's the thing. Whatever you want to say about the Titans, they have dominated this division. I think they have like 1 loss in the division in the last 3 years. And they're unbeaten in the division this year to this point. Obviously 3-0. So there's nothing out there that tells me that they're going to drop a game to the 1-win Texans or get swept by the Jaguars down the stretch. That doesn't seem very likely to me. So I think worst case scenario, the Titans win 2 games. That's a winning season, and that would clinch them the division regardless of what else happens. By the way, if they lose a whole bunch, I'm still not sure anybody can catch them. The Colts are 3.5 games behind them, feasibly, with 5 games to go. That is a long task to come back in it, and the Colts have a tough schedule down the stretch. The Titans are essentially, their magic number is 2. Beat the Jaguars this weekend and win next weekend, or get a Colts loss, and it's over. They won the division just like that. So it's not about that. I think the Titans are going to win the AFC South. I think they're going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to have a home playoff game. But the question is, can they win once they get there? I think the other thing to look at, though, and I asked Mike Vrabel this question today, and didn't get much of an answer out of him, and he's not going to share what he thinks necessarily in that press conference setting, but you've got to ask those types of questions. Here's the other thing to look at the Titans. They are very one-dimensional, and I said that yesterday, and a couple of people said, what dimension is that? They can't run the football, and that's a good point at the moment. But the point being is, the only thing they really can do, because they want to do it, is run the football. They want to get Derrick Henry going. They want to rush for 150 yards, play good defense, and, beat you off a turnover in a tight game in the fourth quarter. That's this formula they play, and they're very good at it, and they've had great success with it. But here's the bottom line. They're not overly talented. So they're not going to beat anybody 35-10 like the Eagles just did, or beat people the way the Chiefs or sometimes the Bengals do. They're not going to beat anybody like that. So every week is a grind, and it requires Derrick Henry to run for a bunch of yards, and it requires the defense to play well. It requires the Titans to be good in the red zone. By the way, they've been 0 for 5 the last 2 weeks. It requires the Titans to win the turnover battle. By the way, they've got no turnovers. They haven't committed any, but they haven't forced any in the last 2 weeks. It requires all those things to play that formula week in and week out. And then you look around the league. 2 weeks ago, the Eagles ran for 300 yards against the Packers. It wasn't about their passing game. The Titans sold out to stop their running game yesterday, and they did. And you know what the Eagles did? They just dropped Jalen Hurts back and threw it all over the yard. Took a bunch of shots downfield and said Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are going to win. And they did. They threw to a victory yesterday. 2 weeks ago, the Bengals came in here, and they beat the Titans in a physical Titans type of game. Yesterday, they went home, and they beat the Chiefs in a shootout type of game, where it was more on Burrow in the passing game to get it done. That, to me, is what a really elite team is. Yes, you have your style. You have the way you want to play around your stars, but you have the ability to adapt against other people. Or if somebody tries to take something away, you have that ability. The Titans don't have that ability. And again, that goes back to Brown. Last year, if you sold out to stop Derrick Henry and started to have some success, they start taking shots at Brown. And they said, go make a play, AJ. A lot of times he did. They don't have that guy this year. And maybe Treylon Burks will develop into it, but he's not there yet by any stretch of the imagination. And that is a huge, huge problem. Our phone lines are open, 737-7767. We'll take another break. Back with more of your calls right after this.